Part 3. After his 20th birthday, having saved up some spare money, he undertook a journey to the capital for the purpose of acquiring some rare chrysanthemums that his close friend Zoe had told him about. An introductory letter to the eccentric dealer procured him an appointment. Narcore's genuine interest of the chrysanthemums impressed the vendor enough to convince him to part with a very rare, coveted variety. Armed with this prize, Narcore headed back home at once. While staying at an inn along the way, he made the acquaintances of a very distinguished-looking literati named Région, who, along with his sister, was traveling in Narcore's direction. As it was lonely on the road, Narcore befriended Région, and finding much in common, especially their mutual love of chrysanthemums, invited both him and his bashful sister to be his guest for a time. During their stay, Narcore one day accidentally saw the sister without her head cover. He was immediately quite taken with her beauty. What's more, he could not shake the uneasy feeling that he'd seen her before, in a painting at the pavilion or at the market. But of course that was preposterous, for a fine upstanding lady, such as she was, would have had a very sheltered life. As this gnawing notion that he had met her before persisted, however, and during tea time with Région one day he delicately approached the subject of the sister and asked, "Your sister seems to be of an age. May I be so bold as to inquire why it is she is not yet married?" Région smiled and said, "She's been promised to a suitor for some time prior to this. We're waiting for him to turn 21 before the marriage can be arranged." Narcore's heart crumbled, for he had been quite smitten from the first moment he had laid his eyes on her. He quietly grumbled under his breath, not intending for Région to hear, "I shall turn 21 in 2 months. Pity I have no such luck." "Don't be so sure, friend." Région's words just then startled him. He looked up aghast, looking at Région's eyes in search for answers. "Perhaps this may clarify things for you," Région then smiled knowingly. "Though we've enjoyed your hospitality for over a year, with your upright manner you've never inquired after my sister's name. As I have full confidence in you now, I shall divulge it. She is called Yekris, and I dare say you two had already met previously. Do you recollect?" He waited for the information to sink in, and then nodded in the affirmative. "Yes, it was fate that brought you two together back then. I happened to be away with my tutor at the time. You have no idea of the danger you faced when you followed that white hare. He was truly an evil spirit that lured wayward travelers into his trap and then devoured them." Seeing Narcore's horror, he explained, "In answer to your unspoken question, no, we are not the same, and the truth will be revealed to you all in good time. For now, I shall only say this. For some inexplicable reason, my little sister and our parents happened to be in that hare's meadow at that precise time, and that is why I say that you and my sister were destined to be together. My parents have since passed away, but as her guardian, and if it is agreeable to you, I am willing to accept you into our family as my brother-in-law." Narcore was so overjoyed at this that he blurted, of course, nothing can be better." Soon after Narcore's birthday, he and Yekris were married. On their wedding night, after the bride was escorted to the nuptial quarters, a most queer thing occurred that now warrants further mention. You see, during the celebrations, her brother, against Yekris' advice, consumed an inordinate amount of spirits. Seeing the state he was in, Narkora excused himself from the celebrants in order to safely escort his new brother-in-law to his quarters. Along the way, however, Rajon simply collapsed on the ground, and no amount of coaxing would get him up. Fortunately, they were alone at the time, and the few remaining extremely intoxicated guests were preoccupied with the acrobatic performances of the entertainers. Luckily so, for the very moment Rajon had collapsed onto the ground, he had transferred into a wine-colored chrysanthemum and sprouted roots that reached deep down into the earth. Bewildered, Narkora rushed off to his quarters and, finding his new wife seated coyly on the bed, told her all that had happened. She was mortified with the fear of discovery, and exiting through the back door, rushed off at once to where her brother had taken up root. Gently pulling him out of the soil, they replanted him in a pot and secretly brought it back into their private chambers. Needless to say, in all the excitement, neither the bride nor the groom got any sleep that night, as Yekris made a full confession to her husband. She and her family were chrysanthemum spirits, living as humans, and in her contrition she gave him the option of annulling the marriage if he so desired. But he would not hear of it, and furthermore declared his increased fascination and undying love for her, promising to be a faithful good husband to the end of their days. That night she willingly forfeited her immortality. By the following morning the brother had turned back into a human, suitably embarrassed, and apologized profusely. From that day forth, Rajon took care never lose control again. One day he took his leave of them to start his life elsewhere, after promising to visit them from time to time. The married couple lived happily and were blessed with many children, each of whom they named after a different variety of chrysanthemums. The end.